Breaking Down the Law is sponsored by Battle-Born Injury Lawyers.
And as we've been reporting, the president has signed dozens of executive orders, many of them reversing Trump-era policies. Now, a Texas federal judge has issued a temporary restraining order on one of those orders, a deportation moratorium. So what power do these executive orders have, and what can we expect moving forward with the president's orders? Here to discuss it all, breaking it down as he does every Wednesday, attorney Matt Hoffmann with Battle-Born Injury Lawyers. So Matt, okay, let's start with executive orders here, breaking it down, giving us a little bit more insight into, what they are they unusual, and what power do they actually have?
Well, they're not uncommon, and they always make the news every presidential cycle. But I mean, executive orders have been used all the way back to Washington. So literally since the beginning. FDR is probably the most notable. He issued literally thousands of them. A lot of people don't know that Japanese internment camps during World War II, that was actually by executive order. During, desegregation, President Eisenhower issued an executive order to federally take over the Arkansas National Guard in order to, push desegregation. So executive orders have been used for a lot of things for a lot of years, and they have all the power of just like a law that was passed by Congress. The problem is that they stem from the executive. So when there's a changing of the guard, there can be a changing of the law, and that's what we're seeing here. And that's why, under President Obama, we had DACA with the Dreamers. Under President Trump, you have a permit given for the Keystone XL Pipeline, only to then be done away with by the next president, President Biden. Same with the Paris Climate Accord. And so, yes, they have all the force and effect of law, and they are federal law, but they can go away with the stroke of a pen, and that's what we're seeing now.
Okay, well, speaking of which, let's stay on that topic. There was a federal judge on Tuesday that put a temporary restraining order, that is, on President Biden's executive order concerning deportation. So I guess along that line of thought, how can it be stopped by the courts if you have an executive order put out there?
No, and that's a great question. So, any executive order is, yes, it is the law, just like an act of Congress, but even an act of Congress, it has to be constitutional. And so that's the same with an executive order. So just because the executive proclaims something doesn't mean that it's just going to happen. I think Harry Truman during the Korean War, there was a labor strike in the steel industry, and he issued an executive order literally seizing the private steel industry. And it was challenged, and the Supreme Court kind of laid out what is now used to challenge these things and said, look, you can't do that, number one. Number two, you already have the Defense Production Act. That's what Congress gave you to do the same thing. So use that. You can't just seize property. So that executive order was overturned. With President Biden, I mean, number one, I think that his executive order has been a little bit misreported. It stops deportations for people that entered the country from November 1st, 2020 going forward. Anybody that was already in that process, in the queue, this doesn't stop any of that. But the constitutional problem is that Immigration's Customs Enforcement is established under the Department of Homeland Security. Department of Homeland Security was created by Congress, and nothing in those laws says that the president can somehow dictate what they can and can't do. And so for the president to now limit, ICE's ability to do their job, that's where the problem arises. Because if they can't deport, then they have literally no authority. You've basically gotten rid of them. Because the only reason they can arrest somebody is because they have the authority under the law to deport. If you take away the ability to deport, you have no power whatsoever, and you just cease to exist.
Very interesting. Looking at these executive orders, I guess one of the remedies of that was if Congress would come together and they come up with a law that everybody, could agree with and
God forbid.
be able to abide by. But, we'll see how that all plays out. Hey, Matt, really appreciate it. An interesting historical perspective, too, that you gave us with all of that little history lesson. Appreciate you, and we'll see you again on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.